Hello everybody, this is Loki, or WayOfLoci, and welcome to No Hit Podcast. Here, it's my job to interview extraordinary gamers in the realms of challenge running, whether that be no hit runs, completing games in their entirety without taking a single hit or point of damage, speedruns, completing games that would normally take hours and mere minutes, and other such ventures. Today's guest is Msushi, that's Msushi on YouTube and Twitch, and Msushi_ on Twitter. Msushi is a world record level speedrunner in the Half-Life series, Portal series, and Celeste, having completed various world records and world record level runs in various categories across the games, as well as being a YouTube content creator, having created several essay-styled videos centered around speedrunning glitches, techniques, and strategies. Sushi has also taken part in multiple in-person speedrun events, including GDQ, GSA, and more, which we go into. In this conversation, we go into how Sushi got involved in Portal and Celeste speedrunning, about why Celeste's design is one of the best for speedrunning, how he approaches creating one of his essay-style videos, and the interesting niche of co-op speedrunning. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Msushi. Right, Sushi, thanks very much for coming on the podcast today. Hope you're doing well, man. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, I appreciate taking the time out for this. I would like to start with probably a quick thing, but I was interested in your social pictures, as across most of your social media presence, it's of a shade of purple. So I was interested in how that originated or came to be.
Yeah, so I guess one thing to put it out there, I've been using the internet from a young age. I think I've adopted the name Msushi since maybe the age of 10. So that's always been set in stone for my internet identity, I suppose. But for a while, when I used the internet, I'd have the name Msushi, and to go with it, I'd have either it was Pokemon for a long time. I liked using either Charizard or Mew. And for a while, I also liked anime, so I'd put anime girls as my profile picture. I don't want to talk about it, but that was a long time ago. And obviously, as we'll get into, and you've introduced me, but I do a lot of Portal speedrunning, and one of my Portal speedrunner friends, Zaipe, he likes going through all his profile pictures, and one day he was in between changing them out, and he changed it to just a black square, just a black image, straight black, just the color. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to change my profile picture to my favorite color, which was purple. And I changed it, and he changed it back immediately. I probably sent him a message trying to grab his attention, like, oh my god, we're matching. Or like, oh, is this what the cool kids are doing now? Something of that nature. But he already changed his. He claimed that the black square was just a placeholder, but I didn't really have a profile picture, so I just kind of kept it, and I liked it. And that was probably like 2014. And to this day, I like the purple a lot. I mean, again, it's kind of my favorite color. Being completely honest, I think the brand of purple I currently have, the Msushi purple, it's a little bright. It's a little obnoxious to actually be like my quote-unquote favorite color. I do like purple a lot. But if you showed me every shade of purple, I'm sure I could give you an alternative. But I like the branding. It's super simple, but also unique. And I don't know, it gives people something to remember, and it makes branding really easy for me, so I like it a lot.
Just as a quick last thing, how did you choose that particular shade? Because I know whenever I try to do like colours for things, I just takes so long going through like the colour charts and such, like for fonts and such.
Yeah, so it's really funny. I think this shade of purple is actually one of the default ones on paint.net. I think I could actually check again. I feel like the one on paint.net is like one green value off or something stupid like that, where it made me think like, how did I get this value anyways? But I swear I just went to paint.net. There was a big array of colors. I picked one I liked, and I hit the paint bucket tool, save the file, bada bing, bada boom, get done with it all.
History made.
Yeah.
Sweet. So let's move into speedrunning. Which came first, Portal or speedrunning?
Right, so I actually have a really funny story regarding this. For the record, I'd say Portal, I don't like choosing between Portal 1 and Portal 2, so I just say Portal the series is probably my favorite game of all time, if not tied for like, I kind of have a top 3 games. But when I was a wee lad, when I was pretty young, I loved watching OG YouTube, and Minecraft was a huge thing. I remember specifically I followed the Yogscast, who were Minecraft YouTubers and other YouTubers at the time, but they did a video of them playing a Portal 2 co-op map called Combustible Lemons, I think it was. And it was just straight a Portal 2 co-op sandbox map. He had all the gels, all these physics objects, huge massive rooms to portal around, and they had some fun with it. And I thought, wow, that game looks really cool. I want to get it. At the time, I was 10 years old. I did not know how to get video games, so I do the natural thing, and I search up Portal 2 free download in Google. And what happened was I was playing on my old kind of family desktop, pretty old Windows XP machine, I believe. Maybe Windows Vista, actually. Windows Vista. So it's pretty archaic thing. And the computer's graphics card was actually not able to run that version of the source engine. It couldn't run the game. It would launch the main menu, but anytime I loaded into the first chapter of the game, I'd hear the audio, but I couldn't see anything. It was just a straight black screen. So I'm like, oh, I guess the shady free download didn't work, which was awkward. I think for my 11th birthday, I actually got Portal 2, the game. I got the CD, and I was really excited to finally play it, but it still didn't work on the computer. So, it was kind of a funny story because I really wanted to play this game, and when I actually got it, it still didn't work. So I ended up playing on like my parents' like work computer or something, and I enjoyed the game a ton. And later on when I actually started playing the game, once we got an actual computer, I'd love to play the game. I'd download all the custom maps, I'd replay it, and the huge gateway into speedrunning for me was that Portal 2 has this thing called challenge mode, where it's right on the main menu. You can hit challenge mode, you can select any level in the game, and you can replay it, and it'll tell you your time to beat the level, and it will tell you how many portals you used to beat the level. So just a great way to challenge you if you've already played the game before. And since it was my favorite game, and I didn't really have any interest in buying or playing new games, I like spending a lot of time in it. Even if it wasn't like at the time I was like, oh, I want to be like the world record holder, or oh, I want to be the best at this, or I'm going to compete for every 10th of a second. It was just a lot of like, I'm having a lot of fun playing this game, and I had this huge benchmark, this motivation to be like, oh, this level's cool, I wonder how fast I can beat it. And I'd randomly, Portal 2 has a co-op feature, obviously, but you can match with people randomly online to play co-op with. And I'd always love going randomly matching with people and be like, oh, how fast can you beat this level? I bet I can do it faster than you. And then adding them on Steam Friends, and just having a whole lot of fun with that. So I was definitely a fan of Portal before a fan of speedrunning, absolutely.
Definitely had to persevere to play it, seeing like got through to it.
Yeah.
It would not be denied. Universe trying to be against. I do remember, like, it might still be the case, but like Portal was a huge custom map like community. Like, I just remember being a ton amount created. Like I say, I don't know if that's still like the current moment is, but I remember like a few years ago it was.
Yeah, I think custom content for a lot of the Source Engine games are really big. I feel like since like kind of Gary's Mod has ever become a thing, the Source Engine has been so easy to like make stuff with. And I feel like even then it like dates back to all like Quake and Half-Life and things of that nature. So
going from experimenting or playing with challenge mode, when did it turn from fun to try and beat the game quicker and quicker to, I guess, a targeted speedrun effort?
Right. So what's interesting is I would say that I quote unquote started speedrunning in like 2013, 2014. But again, that was a lot of like, oh, there's this feature right in the game called challenge mode that I'm going to play, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Around 2014, I believe, Portal 2, someone programmed dedicated leaderboards for all the challenge mode levels that filtered out all the cheaters and stuff. So that really fueled competition. But I just kind of played the game on and off, probably about until like maybe 2016, where I really started getting top places on these leaderboards, and I'm like, wow, I really want to compete. I want to be better than a lot of these people. I want to try and get some number one spots, not even necessarily, but I want to try and not just play my favorite game multiple times, but I want to speedrun it. That was kind of when that happened.
I want to go further on that, but something just caught my attention. How did they remove cheaters, or what did they mod in to do that?
Right, so just Portal uses the Steam leaderboards. I don't know, it's I feel like it's so outdated nowadays, but a lot of older games have leaderboards that are integrated right into Steam, and there's like no anti-cheat. If you look, just to put into perspective how broken the Steam leaderboards are, there's actually a funny story, because if you go to the page for Portal 2, you can scroll down to like achievements, and it's like, oh, do you want to see like the achievements, or do you want to see like the leaderboards for games that have leaderboards? Just to give you some perspective, if you've ever been to a Steam achievement page in a while, there's like, for every game you can see like the global percentage of like, oh, 2% of people in Hollow Knight have beaten 100% of the game. It shows you like the percentage of people who've gotten each achievement. It uses like the same API kind of for that. It's on the same page, and they have all the leaderboards. And what's funny is a couple years back they actually updated it, and it completely broke the Portal 2 leaderboards because they added a third decimal place when it's only 2 decimal places. So the times used to be like 24.65, 24.67.
Yeah.
But now it says 2.467. The times are all just incorrect. No one has ever fixed it. No one has touched it. It's really funny. But all we did to make our own leaderboards now is it just pulls all the data straight from Steam, and it basically puts them onto a new sheet, formats all the times, and we've basically blacklisted certain accounts that were like, hey, we know this time is not possible. There are some chambers where people literally have negative times on the Steam leaderboards because it's pure anarchy. So yeah, we just blacklisted probably like there are a couple hundred accounts that aren't actually on the leaderboards.
What was the first Portal category, let's say, that you started, I guess, aiming for or put a lot of time into or enjoyed?
Right, so it's actually really interesting because as much as I'd say most people would consider Portal and Portal 2 to be like a very popular speedrun game for its like full game, full completion speedruns, especially Portal 2, it's the challenge mode runs are super, super popular. I would say they're, especially like nowadays, they're almost like 3 times as competitive as the actual normal game. So I probably played the challenge mode levels all the way till maybe about 2017. Actually competitive. I tried dabbling in like probably between like 2014 and 2017, 2016. I tried dabbling in like, I tried a Portal 1 inbounds run that I never submitted. I learned Mario 64 16 star because that's every token speedrunner has to learn how to do that, let's be honest. But it wasn't probably till maybe like early 2017, late 2016 where I tried picking up the Portal 2 full game run. And yeah, at the time I actually really enjoyed it over the challenge mode levels a lot. But even then it wasn't so like, I want to be the best at this. It's like, this is just another, I like doing the challenge mode stuff, but doing the full game's a nice change of pace. But at the same time, it sounds a bit crazy because there are obviously longer speedruns out there, but the Portal 2 speedrun is about an hour long, and it's like, do I really want to sit down for an hour and do a whole run? Like, that's so much time to commit.
I did notice that when I was going through some of your runs, like a lot of them are sub-hour with I think only the few that are above that was like the Celeste longer categories, like 100%, for instance, which like border just under like 150 or 2, I believe. So it's like the shorter runs more appeal to you.
Yeah, I generally like runs that are like under an hour long because I really like I like micro optimizing, if that makes sense. I like looking at small things and being like, how can I save half of a second here or 0.2 seconds here? And a lot of times, a lot of longer speedruns, it's like, okay, we have this run killing trick 3 hours in that I'm gonna practice to death because if I miss it, I have to reset and I'm gonna completely ruin my day. Obviously, there are a ton of super cool speedruns out there. I mean, again, it's the kind of thing where I don't mind learning longer speedruns. I think the longest speedruns I've remembered doing is Celeste 100% and A Hat in Time all timepieces, which I did way back before any of the DLC, so it was a bit shorter than it was today. But even then, it was still around an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's not that I hate it. If there was a game that I found really interesting, I wouldn't mind learning it, but I think naturally these games that are around half an hour to an hour long are kind of like the sweet spot in terms of like, it's not just an individual, you can't just spam resets at it and try it over and over again and hit your head against the wall. You have to practice some consistency, but you can also deep dive into individual sections and be like, why am I losing 500ths of a second here over the world record? I really want to iron this out and, save every single millisecond, which I find super fun.
You mentioned then about you said the word inbound. For people who might not be aware, could you describe the separation within Portal of the speedruns, for instance, like inbound, outbound, and what the appeal of the different that distinction is?
Right. So
that's a really bad way to word it, but
yeah, it's more prevalent in Portal 1. There are 4 major categories, that being any percent, whereas we call it out of bounds. Then there's inbounds. There's inbounds no save load abuse, and then there's glitchless. Glitchless is probably the most easiest to understand, the token category. Don't use glitches. Then there's inbounds, which is beat the game without you or your portals leaving inbound space, which is a bit arbitrarily defined, but it's basically anywhere within the walls of the game, anywhere the developers have put rooms or walls. In Portal, it's very clear when you're out of bounds because you see a big black void. But if you've ever seen a Portal 1 inbounds run, that game has crazy glitches, and it's like when a lot of new routes were found a couple years ago, a lot of OG runners, original runners, called what we call inbounds now, they called it fake bounds because it was so crazy. And as a result of that, we made another category called inbounds no save load abuse, which is inbounds, but you can't use any glitches that involve saving and loading. In the source engine, there's super easy quick saves and quick loads. You can bind it just to a key and press it super easily, which is awesome for like speedrunning, because if you make a mistake, you can just instantly load a save and you don't have to worry about a weird backup strat. You can just redo stuff. But it happens to be one of the most broken things in terms of glitches, and there are a lot of weird states you can preserve to absolutely demolish the game. So there's a whole separate category for a run that doesn't use those glitches, and it might sound stupid if you're just hearing it, but if you actually watch the runs, it looks completely different, which is quite funny. And in Portal 2, the main category is actually inbounds no save load abuse. We just call it single player, but it's actually inbounds no save load abuse just because the normal any percent run is like a full 20 minutes faster, and even inbounds with save load abuse would be like 10 minutes faster, which is crazy. And then of course there's a normal out of bounds run, which is just all glitches are allowed, beat the game as fast as possible, which is also pretty crazy.
Do you have a particular preference to any of them, or each for different reasons?
They all have their own merit. I think out of bounds is always fun to watch because it's so stupid and broken. As a runner, I personally love running inbounds no save load abuse because it's kind of the middle ground of there are some glitches to it, but it's also not insanely broken. You know, a casual player can recognize the game. I think glitchless is also pretty cool in its own right, but there's a little bit of something for everyone. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think when you talk about crazy looking runs, I think everyone's seen a Portal speedrun of some variation of one of those categories, and seen the runner like move a step left to right, keep firing portals out, and they don't seem to have gone anywhere, but then they suddenly appear at the next elevator, and it's just like confusing and very impressive.
Yeah.
One thing I saw on channel, which I think would be really nice to be applied for other games, was a Portal speedrun mod, specifically for speedrunners to have on other games. Could you just explain what that speedrun mod is? And I can specify if there's the varied ones.
Yeah, so we actually have quote-unquote speedrun mods for both games. In Portal 1, it's called Portal Elevators, and in Portal 2, it's called the Portal 2 Speedrun mod by CrazyHow. The basic thing is that speedruns have a lot of downtime, specifically in the Portal games. You're waiting in elevators a lot. You're sitting through cutscenes. I think the most notorious examples in the Portal games are the vault sequence at the start of the game. So basically, we create a mod, which is basically it's less of an actual mod and more of small map edits and tinkering with the level files. So we basically make it so all of the elevators travel instantly and all the cutscenes are patched out. And we treat it as a mod. So it's a completely different leaderboard, completely different quote-unquote game, but it's super fun for accessibility. To put it into perspective, the Portal 2 speedrun the world record's about 58 minutes, and the speedrun mod world record is around 28 minutes. So it's almost half the length of the run. And I think Portal Elevators is around the same. It's around half as long. And one thing I will say regarding modding in Portal, as you mentioned before, the custom content is insane for these games, but specifically within the Portal 2 community, we actually have a dedicated, I don't want to say mod, but it's kind of like a plugin for the game. We call it SAR, Source Auto Record. It's mainly maintained by a runner and developer in the community named Mlug, and it's crazy. We basically have so many different things set up to automatically time the game and borderline task tools. We're also working on I don't think it ever came to fruition, but we basically made a coding language within the plugin, so people were all programming all these fun widgets to put on screen, to the point where people had it set up so that during cutscenes you could play Tetris, which I don't think it was ever valid for runs, but it was like the funniest thing ever when it happened. And yeah, I feel like PC speedrunning as a whole, I feel like almost all popular PC speedruns have these dedicated modding communities to help with quality of life stuff, but the things we have in Portal and Portal 2 are really impressive.
Yeah, I know a little bit from the Sekiro from Software speedrun community. They have for PC gaming, of course, they have a mod which gets rid of all the pop-ups, all the press R1 to attack, that kind of thing, for speedrunning, just for quality of life, really, which is then accepted in speedruns because everyone's like, Yeah, this is so much better than getting it interrupted every 5 seconds. This is so much, I guess, on the modded side, but even though it looks like it, but I wanted to ask about it, which was the assets that I've carried over into the game from other games, with the one that I found or that saw, which was the Airboat. And wanted to ask, first, could you describe how that works and what airboat means from what I'm saying? And if there's any other interesting assets that are like that in the game?
Yeah, so basically, like every Source Engine game is connected. The idea is that I guess I know exactly what you're referring to, and I guess for any podcast listeners, I guess I'm supposed to plug myself at the end, but I have a whole video on my YouTube channel talking about a specific Portal speedrun called Airboat Percent, and the whole gist of the speedrun is you need to beat the game by only using the airboat from Half-Life 2. You can't use any portals. You can only not use airboats, but you can spawn them in. You can create them in. If you're interested, you can. It's a whole can of worms, I guess is the saying. So you can go check that out. But the whole gist is that when Portal was made, they basically copy and pasted Half-Life 2 into it. It's kind of similar for Portal 2, or not for Portal 2. Portal 2 is its own version of the Source Engine, but Half-Life 2 is literally copy paste. When they made Portal, they're like, okay, we're gonna take Half-Life 2, we're gonna copy it, we're gonna paste it into a new folder, name it Portal, and we're just gonna remove all the maps. And now we're going to make new ones and program a portal gun. So it's very much the same thing. TF2 is very similar, but just Portal's case is more unique. I don't know how to describe this better other than that if you open Portal and you open your task manager, it will say that hl2.exe is running on your computer. It straight up isn't even renamed. Yeah, we joke sometimes like the whole Source Engine is on like stilts, and you can just knock it off and the whole thing won't fall over. I think there was a meme a while back when there was like a Source Engine source code leak that there was like one file in TF2 that was like a picture of like a penguin or something. And the developer commented like, this file is driving me crazy. For some reason, the game crashes if you delete the file, but I don't think it's used anywhere. I don't know what's wrong with this. But yeah, the main gag is that the airboat from Half-Life 2, which actually is used a lot in the game, not only is it in the Portal game files, but the console command to create it isn't protected by cheats. So people made a speedrun category using it, and it's quite funny. But yeah, the way I like to put it is that at its root, almost all the Source Engine games are connected. They share all the same console commands. So the airboat just happened to slip in, you know?
Just for a visual for people, you can be like in the starting area of Portal and put in this command, and that airboat is just suddenly there in front of you.
Yeah.
just like that, which is very odd to see. I wanted to look into it, but I just wanted to ask what it is instead. Like I thought, which is, what is Minecraft percent in Portal? As I saw it on category extensions, but I didn't want to like spoil it for myself again.
Sure. There's a category extension called Minecraft percent for Portal 1. And it just uses a console command called mat_low-res-image1, which is a console command made if you're literally running the game on a toaster. Makes the game look as bad as possible to the point where it's literally blocky. So that's why it's called Minecraft percent. You just run with a super bad quality setting. It's actually not too bad, but specifically for the inbounds runs where you're shooting the glitched inbounds run where you're shooting the walls a ton and miraculously appearing at the end of the level, that speedrun, since there are a lot of precise setups, it's actually like really, really hard to run it with the low textures. So Minecraft percent inbounds is actually, it's not a funny run if you don't run Portal, but if you run Portal, it's like, wow, this is so much harder than it should be.
We've talked about like all the different category breakdowns. If someone was a fan of the Portal series 1 and 2, is there either of the games, and which particular categories would you recommend if they wanted to start in speedrunning?
I always recommend to people, if you want to speedrun something, and generally, not even Portal, but if you want to speedrun something, Portal Glitchless is like my favorite speedrunning category to recommend to people. The world record's around 15 minutes long. With practice, I think anyone can do it in under half an hour. You can realistically learn it if you're experienced with learning stuff and a keyboard and a mouse, you can learn it within a couple of hours, if not within the day. And there aren't like run breaking tricks you need to know. Like I don't know how to compare it for the general viewer, but there's not like, oh, you have to learn this, you have to do this, and it's like triple frame perfect. There are a lot of modular things that even if you don't like the intermediate strat, you can swap it out for like the intended solution, and you can still beat the game fairly quickly. So I think it's a great speedrun to get started with.
I guess there's a thought there as well, to do that if someone's like getting introduced to speedrunning, there can be all these fancy tricks in these world record runs, but they don't need to be implemented like straight away. You can do some, like just doing it under half an hour is still amazing. Then you can slowly like work down the minutes before like the minute seconds even matter in terms of trying to reduce them.
Yeah, absolutely. I always even though I'm not a musician myself, I always like doing the comparison because I think learning an instrument is like the best comparison to like learning any skill in life. I think learning a language is fairly similar, but if you pick up a guitar and you're like, and you listen to some music and you're like, I want to be able to play like that, like right away, you're going to be so disappointed when you start learning and you're not going to be able to go anywhere close. You're going to say, this sucks. You're going to throw your guitar in the closet and never pick it up again. If you watch a speedrun of any game and you say, I want to do that, and then you pick up the game yourself and try to do it, you're going to be so disappointed when you can't do it. You got to start with the idea of having fun and getting into it. And hey, even if I can't be good as that, maybe one day I can get there and I'm just going to have fun doing what I'm doing and enjoying the learning process, Random comparison there. But that's always how I like putting it.
I want to go to YouTube later on, but I just want to make reference to that you've made many Portal glitch explanation videos and demonstration videos and like history videos. I've just said videos like 4 times in like a single sentence. Do you have any particular favorites that stand out or they just think are great that are in the game?
Do you mean like anything favorite about Portal or like a favorite YouTube video of mine or?
Just glitches within the game. Just know you're very knowledgeable about the various glitches within, having made like so many
favorite
videos.
glitch within the game. There are a couple of, I don't know if there's anything like completely shocking that's like, oh yeah, this is absolutely my favorite thing and I have to talk about it. But there are like a couple of small things in terms of like, there's one level in Portal 2 co-op where like a catwalk just doesn't line up, which looks kind of funny. There's a level in Portal 2 where one part of the wall isn't solid and you can just push physics objects through it, and that's also kind of funny. Oh, there's a lot of like quick fun facts things. Like a generally favorite glitch, I feel like my favorite thing in Portal 2 has to be the excursion funnel crouch fly glitch, which if you've never seen before, it's a glitch in Portal 2 where normally in the last 2 chapters of the game, there's these puzzle mechanics called excursion funnels, which are basically tractor beams. They pick you up and you float in them, and they're used a lot in puzzles. But on day 1 of the game's release, people found a way to basically use those funnels and preserve the zero gravity state while exiting the funnel. So you basically have fly hacks and you can fly around all of the levels. I think it's pretty well known, but it's absolutely like my favorite thing in the game. And the irony that it was discovered on the first day of the game's release and it's never been patched. It's still in the game. So I think it's pretty cool.
Glitch hunters are a different breed. Like I don't get how they find some of these things. It's like day 1 break. I remember watching IGN have got a good series where they have like game developers reacting to speedruns, and I think it was like a Crash Bandicoots speedrun where the guy just completely skips part of the area and the developer's just like, oh, we put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah,
it's like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Also, that is one heck of a name of a glitch. Was it excursion tunnel?
Funnel crouch fly glitch.
So I try saying that 5 times. Going into what then was the appeal that drew you to Celeste?
So it's interesting because I think even I started running Celeste in the summer of 2018. Before that, I mainly only speedran first-person shooter games. And Celeste is such an interesting game because it was kind of, in terms of like, obviously only history can tell, but in terms of like speedrunning history, I feel like it's not as big as it was a year or 2 ago, but it was like one of the speedrunning giants almost in terms of like, Celeste was almost always the top game by active users on speedrun.com, and even like it was probably like second to like maybe Mario Odyssey or Mario 64 at the time, which is crazy for this kind of cute little indie game that came out of nowhere. So I remember actually before I even played Celeste casually, because I like to stay in touch with the broader speedrunning community, I'd say. And everyone was always talking about Celeste. Oh, new Celeste world record. Oh, Celeste is #1 in runners on speedrun.com. And I'm like, wow. And even I'm scrolling through Twitter and people are like, wow, Celeste is the best game I've ever played. So in the summer of 2018, I finally got around to playing Celeste. I actually think it was like May of 2018. And I remember too because I got home from high school on like a Wednesday. And I just straight played the game. I sat down in front of my computer, played the game straight for 6 hours, and I fell in love. It was incredible. I loved playing the game so much. And naturally, I'm like, yeah, I want to learn the speedrun. And the biggest motivating factor was when I started learning, I had a friend who, my friend Funk Pie, he had a time around the 51-minute range, which for the record, the world record at the time was like 32 minutes. So, you know, he's still like probably, he wasn't like a super competitive speedrunner for it, but he also, you know, he learned the run. And I'm like, oh, I want to beat you. Like, I want to get a time better than you. And it was such a foreign ground to me. I'd never speedrun a 2D game, nonetheless a 2D precision platformer. But I just had so much fun learning all the levels. And at one point, I got around to beating my friend Funk Pie. And I'm like, oh, I see someone else on the leaderboard. I want to beat them. And I just kept trying to improve my time. And I think the biggest thing about the game, it wasn't really anything about the genre, but the game catered so well to self-improvement and practice. I felt like I could spend hours at a time just going over a single room and just having a lot of fun tinkering with stuff and being like, oh, how can I save half a second here or 0.2 seconds here? And even if it would result in me doing runs and losing 5 seconds on that room anyways because I completely butcher my inputs and I don't know what to do. I just had so much fun learning these small little quirks about the game.
I do think Celeste is a very optimal game for speedrunning. There's like minimal RNG, it's all precision. The resets can be done and not like be like a minute lost. Like it's an instant reset in most cases. So I think it was like just one of the most perfect games for speedrunning to take up on it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the game, it's crazy because we literally, we have an in-game timer already made for us. We have a skip cutscene button. It was actually a controversial. It's something I want to make a video about eventually. But when we find anything in the game, we always have like a direct line of contact to the developers. I've actually talked to Kevin quite a bit, who was one of the major like sound designers for the game and playtester. And I have Maddie added on Discord for one time where they put us in a group with everyone, which is also Maddie Thorson is the creator of the game, but the main person credited with making the game among Noel Berry. And I believe they were mainly the two people. I could be completely wrong. But and literally anytime we find something major game breaking, we're always like, hey, are you guys going to patch this? Because we kind of want to use it in our speedruns, but totally up to you guys. Like, we might down patch, we might not. Just want to let you guys know what you think about this because it's your game. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple weird things of like glitches being discovered and people would argue. The community was completely split and it eventually ended with like the developers patching the glitch. And then we're like, okay, I guess we won't use it. Or I guess we'll make a separate down patch category that no one really ran. I can get more into that later, but the way Celeste is designed straight up, it's just like, obviously I feel like you see developers every now and then, indie developers trying to be like, oh, I want people to speedrun my game. I don't know if anyone's done it anywhere close to how Celeste has done it. It's such a beautiful game.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat, being able to like natter with people behind it, especially with having such a huge amount of runners in it. Like I say, I think it's in the top 3 to 5 of at least submitted runs, I think, like behind like 64 and Odyssey, perhaps even more than Odyssey, although I've not checked out.
I believe it.
Speaking of sound, actually, is there any like soundtracks that stand out for you? Because one of the biggest things I enjoy of Celeste is the soundtracks, the music.
Oh, any songs specifically in Celeste?
That come to mind, or do you have a particular favorite?
Yeah, I love all the a lot of the B-side remixes. 1B Sever the Skyline, 5B Mirror Magic. I also generally like the 3A theme Checking In, and I also love Reach for the Summit, the song that plays in the Summit Chapter 7, which is like, that song is that's like in my gym playlist. Like, I love that song. Hypes me up.
Oh, it's there is. I don't think there's many more perfect songs that are for like an end game run, especially for a challenge run to like hype you to the end.
No, I literally one thing when I was once I was starting learning the game, when I was watching like whoever, I think TGH and YP were the main contenders for world record at that time. When I'd watch them and they'd like go into the final level on world record pace and Reach for the Summit started playing, I'm like, wow, that must feel so cool. And I gotta say, as someone who's done that before, yeah, it does feel really cool. It's an awesome song.
Definitely. I don't speedrun myself, but I did a deathless run of Celeste, and just the same feeling of just like the hype going into that, even though I'm doing obviously a bit slower for safety.
Yeah.
So the initial goal was to beat that 51-minute mark. How did the progress go from that to sub 30? How was there breakthroughs? What were the steps from like 50 to 40 to 30?
So the biggest thing was actually probably around the time I was around like maybe the high 30-minute, like 39-minute or something, which is like an okay time, but still like maybe top 50 at the time, which is like pretty good all things considered, especially with how popular the game was. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, there's that epic 39th place Celeste speedrunner. But there was a community tournament hosted for Any Percent, I believe, like literally that summer. Like just to put the timeline of like how this went out, I played Celeste casually in like May of 2018. And by like September of 2018, I was like a top runner, or like not quite competing for a world record, but close to that, where it was like I like literally downed 500 hours in this game ASAP before I knew it, which was incredible. But there was a tournament, a community tournament that was hosted, and I was really motivated to get good at the game because I wanted to compete in it. And I think I don't actually know what I ended up placing. I just remember at the start of the tournament, I had like a 38-minute time, and like 5 months later when the tournament ended, I had like a 31-minute time or something stupid. Like I think that was my main drive, was like, I'm going to sign up for this tournament and I'm going to improve at the game a lot, and maybe I'll impress some people, or not really make a name. I don't want to sound like it's like a huge breakout thing, because I don't care that much about like quote unquote attention or like respect. It was more, I was playing the game because I wanted to get good at it, not because I wanted people to think I was good at the game. I don't want to sound too egotistical in that regard or something, but I wanted to compete, and I had so much fun playing the game, and my enjoyment for the game never really ran out. So it was a lot of fun to just keep going.
I guess like that tournament environment was also a good driver because there's like that competitive aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had 2 runs in front of you, one is of a world record Any Percent speedrun, and one was of a high level Any Percent speedrun, what differences would you see between the 2 runs?
It depends how you would define high level. Like, for example, just how I'm going to interpret this question. The world record for Celeste Any Percent right now is 26:23. I'd say like a high level speedrun is anywhere like under 28 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, yeah. The major difference of it's actually crazy, because when you watch, specifically in Celeste, the super good runners, they'll adopt tactics where it's like, oh, this strategy only saves 0.2 seconds and it's super hard to the point where you fail it 50% of the time. Well, I'm just going to practice it a ton so I can get it 80% of the time, and I'll use it anyways. So it's actually really common that if you watch the world record run or the top 3 runs, they'll have more deaths or more mistakes than those who are like a minute slower, just because they adopt so many faster strategies and the movement is so much cleaner. And it's a lot of things, especially for Celeste, it's a lot of things you wouldn't notice unless you ran the game. So many small like corner cuts and super small optimizations that don't look as hard as they really are, and really obscure ways to get around rooms. There was even a time where I remember I was trying to improve my run, specifically for the first level in the game, the Forsaken City, which is like the most optimized level since it's the one that comes first. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was banging my head against the wall. I'm like, I'm using every single strat. I'm like hyper analyzing my movement, and I'm still losing like 0.7 seconds. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And the top runners, they just naturally like dash a couple frames sooner. It's literally a battle of frames when you're competing at that high level. Obviously, battles of frames over 26 minutes, the frames add up to seconds, so you don't really notice those frames. But I'm telling you, like, the top runners, they'll literally save like 0.04, 0.05 every single room. And sure, they make a 5-second mistake, but they've saved 10 seconds over you in the last 20 rooms of the level, so it doesn't really matter.
How did your progress go with that? So was it when a strat or a new strat or optimization appeared, or that you saw in a new runner, you would add it straight away, or was it a slow accumulation of different strats?
Yeah, so when I was first learning the game, it was a lot of just like what I feel comfortable with, because Celeste is one of those games that's so movement intensive that honestly, even if you don't have... Let me put it this way. I'm pretty rusty in Celeste. I don't think I've done a run in like 6 months, but I naturally understand the movement fundamentals so well that I'm sure if I could pick it up right now, I could get like a 30-minute time probably within a couple of hours of derusting. And like, I'm sure I do some super, crazy strats that's like, oh, those don't make sense at all. But since I understand like the movement fundamentals so well, I'd probably could use quote unquote strats that are slower than a 32-minute time, but have no problem beating them just because of how essential it is that you just understand maintaining speed in that game. So a lot of it was just like, I'm going to learn this strat, I'm comfortable with this strat, and if I'm ever like, oh, this level is slow, or like I'm losing a lot of time here compared to my competitors, I'm going to see, okay, what do they do? And like, oh, they do a crazy, they dash horizontally instead of upright here. So I'm going to incorporate that, and wow, that saves 5 frames. Or like something crazy like that. It's usually not like, I don't know. Usually in a lot of other games, it's all of like, guys, we found a game-breaking new strat. We can save 2 seconds here if we go left down this hallway instead of going right. In Celeste, it's never really like that. It's usually one day someone just slams their head at a room for 2 hours, and they're like, guys, I think with proper execution, this can be 2 frames faster. And everyone was like, okay, good for you, I guess. Like, I don't really need the 2 frames. But then eventually when people go look back, they're like, okay, 2 frames can't hurt. Let's see how this is. And Celeste is also crazy because there's nothing like, there are very few tricks you have to do. There are points where if you watch the first and second place run, they'll actually differ quite a bit in terms of like input by input. It's never like, I don't know how to say this, but if you watch a Super Mario 64 speedrun, a lot of times they have the exact same strats and it comes down to straight execution. In a Celeste speedrun, the strats will actually vary by a bit. Just the thing is, the difference in strats will make up like literal frames. And a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, I don't feel totally comfortable with this with strat, so I'm going to lose 2 frames here. But maybe they feel comfortable with a different strat down the road. And there's so much, like, Celeste is a game of milliseconds. It's crazy.
You mentioned having a good basis of movement fundamentals. Could you provide an example of what that means in movement fundamental?
Yeah, so the biggest thing about Celeste is maintaining your dash state. The biggest thing, if you've never played Celeste before, the game is often praised as a precision platformer for its simplicity and its easy to learn yet hard to master controls, as in you only have 3 controls. You can move using, I use my arrow keys, I'm sure everyone uses something different. And then you can climb a wall, you can jump, and you can dash. Those are your only 3 tools to move your character. But there are a lot of different ways to maneuver your player, specifically using your dash. There's something called a hyper dash and an ultra dash that all revolve around you using down diagonal dashes, either down right or down left. And a lot of optimization just comes to staying as low to the ground as possible so you can always regain your dash as fast as possible. Because generally speaking, if you're not dashing, you're not going as fast as possible. So there's a lot of small pseudo things, and also corner boosts and corner jumps, which are, I guess, more speed tech because they're not really required in the main game, but technically intended features that also involve manipulating your way around corners and getting speed faster. But in a lot of movement too, it's just straight up like, oh, can I fit a dash here, or will I get caught by this cycle that's going to kill me and send me back to the side of the room? But the biggest thing is just having a sense of like, okay, how many times can I dash in this room? Because generally speaking, the route with the most dashes is going to be the fastest.
Yeah, an example, I guess, is of where these dashes are incorporated, which look a little bit strange. Maybe a general player is like falling through some crystal, like a crystal area, and using dashing to dive down quicker. as well, which looks strange, but it's all about those those milliseconds. Is there this sort of a weird question, but is there any resources that you know that describe the differences between the different speed techs? Because we mentioned earlier to do with like the excursion, funnel, crouch jump having a long title. I've seen like Celeste speed techs when they've gone like, okay, so this is a hyper dash, and this is the reverse ultra hyper dash speed. I just like, do you know? I was just wondering if you know any resources, notes, videos which describes each of those.
I think someone made a document a while back, and there are actually some custom levels that will actually like show. They're kind of like custom tutorial levels that'll show you like oh, this is a hyper dash. But it's actually interesting because a lot of the naming schemes in Celeste is all like, we have a couple of things. We have like reverse dashes, we have hyper dashes, we have ultra dashes, we have corner boosts, and these are all independent things. But in the nature of the game, you end up stringing stuff together. So it's like, oh, in this room, we're going to do reverse hyper dash into corner boost into ultra.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what the hell? But yeah, it goes again with the game having like only 3 controls, that it's super simple. So we end up chaining a ton of things together, and then it gets complicated. I think there's a document out there somewhere, but I don't know of any too dedicated resource off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's no worries. It's actually an interesting point that the like simplicity of like if people have seen the speedruns of it is simple and it is complex because the movements are just so refined and quick compared to what the controls actually are. I think it's a perfect game for speedrunning, but it's also weird. I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Going outside of any percent, we mentioned doing 100%, but you've also done many other of the Celeste categories. Is there any that stand out that you enjoyed running as well?
Yeah, I really liked running 100%. Celeste 100% is actually the only world record I've had in Celeste. I was a couple seconds off of any percent, but I never got it. And my current personal best for Celeste 100% was a world record when I got it, but now it's like 6 minutes off because people have really refined that category. All of the other categories in Celeste are a ton of fun. Just any percent happens to be the most optimized and most competitive. I think the all red berries category is super cool because it's kind of like a scavenger hunt around all the levels, and it's so cool. I don't know how to explain this, but while you view any percent, like, okay, we have to go from point A to point B. It's like, okay, easy enough. But this all red berries category where, for those who don't know, there are 175 collectibles within the game. These red berries that you have to collect. Well, you don't have to collect them, but for the sake of the speedrun category, you do have to collect them because that's the name of the category. But yeah, if any percent is you have to go from point A to point B, all red berries is you have to go from point A to point B, and you also have to go to point C through F along the way, all these arbitrary points in the level. So it's like a lot of super cool, nuanced movement where a lot of times, you know, Celeste is a game that goes from left to right naturally. So a lot of times in any percent, you're just going to the right of the screen always. But it's like in all red berries, oh, we're going to take a quick pit stop down. We're going to speed our way through this room, grab this berry, take a straight hook back to the left, go back on the main path. And there's a ton of cool, crazy stuff like that.
Did 202 ever catch your attention, or have you found it?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so Celeste 202 berries, for those unaware, is technically true 100% for the game, where there's these things called golden berries, where you have to beat every single level in the game without dying. Not at the same time, just each individual level. You have to go through it completely deathless. I actually attempted a 202 berries run for the game's 2nd anniversary, which was January 2020. And at the time, I never got the Farewell Golden Berry, which for those who don't know, Farewell is a 15-20 minute long chapter. It's by far the longest in the game. I think it's like less than 100 people have gotten the Golden Berry. At least when I attempted it. I'm sure now a lot more people have, but it's definitely like under 1,000 in total because it's such a brutal level. But I ended up playing the game for 10 hours, and in a single sitting, I got 201 berries, but I couldn't get that Farewell Golden Berry. That challenge is just crazy. It's so stupid.
And I just like to put in there, that's 15 to 20 minutes of being a speedrunner on a casual playthrough of Farewell. That's going to take you hours. and probably several thousand deaths. At least I did on my first attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, how was that experience? Because was you running Celeste when Farewell came out or before Farewell came out?
Oh yeah, Farewell came out in 2019, so I was well into the game already. The coolest thing actually when Farewell first came out was we incorporated a new category called True Ending, which was basically beat Chapter 9 as fast as possible. And I actually really liked running that when it first came out. I think I was second place within like the first week of the chapter's release. And it was a lot of fun. It was also super cool to, I don't know how to say this, but there's like two sides of speedrunning where it's like, obviously when you're first, if you just want to, oh, I want to learn how to speedrun Super Mario 64, there are already so many resources out there. There are so many people who can help you. But, even though we're all super experienced Celeste runners, oh, new DLC chapter just dropped that no one has ever seen before. It's always a scramble to be like, what's the fastest? We're going to learn how to do this stuff. And especially when it was like, Celeste is a fairly linear game, but there was one point in the level where there's like a top path and a bottom path that deviate. And it was always so fun that one week it was like the bottom path is faster. And next week, oh, the top path is actually faster. And then the next week, oh, the bottom path is faster. And it's always fun to see the scramble of what strategies are actually working, because I'm sure whatever run I did the week the chapter came out was completely different from what we did the next week and the week after that to what we have today.
Yeah, it's super cool whenever something new comes out because it's like so much undiscovered stuff, like strats, locations, items, pretty much. One thing I'm really looking forward to next year is Elden Ring, which is again from developers of the From Software series. Just so much that's going to go into that. 'Cause it's just a brand new experience. And just within Celeste, actually, I spoke to Enox a little while ago, who was the first person to get the Moonberry, Golden Strawberry, and Farewell, and talked about this. There is a unique sound effect when you're doing that way of doing of the Golden Strawberry, moving to a different location, because in the Farewell, when you're going for the Moonberry, you have to die once, but there's a unique animation where the Golden Strawberry moves to one particular area so that it's not lost when you die as it normally would be in a Golden Strawberry run. So it's just finite detail the developers must have put in to add that in, knowing that someone was going to be crazy enough to do that.
It's actually a fun fact too. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I guess for the general viewers, the scene you're talking about, where, for the record, there are 175 golden or red berries in the game, and the only exceptions are that Chapter 6 and Chapter 9 don't have any collectibles. Chapter 6 is a lore exception because you get knocked down to the bottom of the mountain, so it doesn't make sense to put red berries there. And Chapter 9 doesn't have red berries because it's like extra, but it does have the moonberry, as you're talking about. And specifically to get the moonberry, you have to backtrack to the last room of the level, and then you have to intentionally die. And as you mentioned, they did make it so that the golden berry like detaches from you for a second, so you can't actually die. But what is cooler there is that whole room is a reference to a speedrun strat known as the Bubs Drop, because we found after the game got released, like a year later, we found that if you like re-enter or die in rooms on a certain way, it resets your spawn point to somewhere it shouldn't be. And it's particularly used in 5B a lot. Where, yeah, when the trick was found, it made the B side viable over the A side, because usually, I don't know how to describe this over audio, but there was a room that you enter from the bottom, and it had a shelf to catch you right when you came into the room. But if you did a wall jump right when you entered the room, you'd barely fall under the shelf and you would re-enter the room. And normally the way the game is designed, it sets a default checkpoint every time you enter the room, but the game didn't anticipate you to enter the room that way because there's a shelf there that's supposed to catch you. So if you die, it sets you on the right side of the room where you shouldn't be, and it saves like 30 seconds. It's super sick. So that whole Moonberry sequence is actually, we joked about it, it made the glitch canon. It shows like, yes, this is a part of the game now. It is legit, this kind of death checkpoint abuse.
You mentioned about stuff getting patched in or patched out or staying in. Do you have examples of glitches that ended up being patched out or that have remained in the game?
So yeah, the biggest, there are two great examples of this. The biggest is there was a glitch called menu storage that was discovered in 2018, I think. The whole gist of the glitch, and this is something I'd actually like to make a video about one day, because I think it's a super cool situation where it was a glitch where by like doing a frame perfect input on a sub menu, you could store the menu to stay on screen. And basically, if you exited the game while entering a level transition, your camera would transition, but your player wouldn't. And that doesn't make that much sense, but it made this super messed up collision state where your camera would be in a room and your player would be in another room. And since your camera isn't in the room where the player is, I'm saying a lot of words, all you need to know is that it would unload certain obstacles. And specifically in 2 levels, I think, the bigger use was in Chapter 5 B-side. You could literally walk through a door and save 40 seconds, and this was before the Bubs drop glitch was discovered, so it was huge because you could save up to 40 seconds in this level, and it made it viable over the A side. And it was a huge thing that was debated upon until the developers eventually patched it out. And some people didn't like it, so they made a subcategory where, okay, you could down patch and run this anyways, but not a lot of people ran it, so it's no longer a thing, and we just run on the main patch. The other really cool glitch is that if you're familiar at all with Celeste, the iconic first cutscene of the game where Madeline walks off the collapsing bridge and she learns how to dash, and then the camera floats up into the sky and it says, "You can do this," which is really cool. It's actually so cool, in fact, the developers made it so that you can't skip that cutscene. It was the only cutscene in the game you had to watch fully. It took around 15 minutes. But someone found out, and this was like 2019, so this was like a year after the game was out. Someone found out that if you pause on the first frame of the cutscene starting, it was frame perfect, you could skip the cutscene. It just had a skip cutscene option. And the developers are kind of freaking out. They're like, we don't really want this. And all the runners are freaking out too. We're like, man, we don't want to retry our run 8 million times over just to get one frame perfect input before the run even starts. So the developers just completely patched it in so that you could naturally skip the cutscene just like any other cutscene, which was actually really cool. That was the nice quality of life thing they did. Actually, one more thing to add to that. There's a glitch in the game called a demo dash. Yeah, demo dashing was a glitch where you could do a crouch dash. So instead of your hitbox being 8 pixels tall, your hitbox became 4 pixels tall, which sounds stupid, but because of the way a lot of obstacles in the game were coded, it meant that you could dash through a lot of spikes, which was crazy for the time. And what was interesting is that to do this glitch, you had to set up a second down directional key of some sort. So if you're playing on controller, you had to bind something else. You had to use like an external program like Joy to Key. And if you were playing on console, you just straight up could not do this glitch. But later on, they made the glitch canon. They patched it in so that in the settings, you could put a button to do a crouch dash, which was super cool of them, the developers in that case.
So a good example that people may have seen previously is in Chapter 3, where there's like a blob wall of the red blob is, where you see the runner just dash through the wall and not get affected. So I believe that's the Madeleine crouching, and so reducing the hitbox and then passing through between the 2 hitboxes of the blobbies, which looks very weird, but it's also pretty cool that that's kept in there. One thing that I've not seen many runners have done, so you've got a few examples, is co-op speedruns, and was interested in how that experience is, I guess.
So I actually love co-op speedruns, for the record. One of my, if you go to my speedrun.com profile, one of the funniest things is that I have a whole page of Minecraft co-op speedruns, which I also joked about for a while, because speedrun.com submissions are stupid, where if you have, it should be like, okay, the way speedrun.com co-op submissions should be like is that if I'm doing a 3-player speedrun of the same game, it should say like, okay, my PB for a 3-person speedrun is with person A and person B. And let's say that was a 50-minute time. Maybe my old PB was a 56-minute time with person C and person D. My profile should show the faster time, and it doesn't care about the older time because whatever. Maybe that shows on their profile if that's their personal best. But speedrun.com will display every single personal best as long as it is with a unique partner or team. So I have like a 3-player Minecraft PB that's with like person A and person B, which is like 30 minutes fast. And then I also have like a 2-hour time that's with person C and person D. But it shows them on your page all the same, which I thought was really stupid. So I joked with all my friends. I'm like, I want as many Minecraft speedruns on my page as possible. So that's just a funny little Easter egg on my speedrun.com page. But I did enjoy speedrunning Minecraft a ton, and that was way before the game blew up. Probably like a year before the game blew up speedrunning wise. But in terms of I would say actual co-op runs, because Minecraft co-op speedrunning is super fun. I actually recommend it if you like the game, but it's the same as single player, just with a friend. The Portal 2 co-op speedrun is super cool. Actually, one of my favorite speedruns. It's super fun to have the dynamic with another runner, not only because, well, speedrunning is inherently boring. You're kind of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I believe they call that the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
But, you're just trying the same thing over and over again, and it's nice to have another person with you to banter with or talk with. I know personally I do Portal 2 co-op with my friend Can't Even, who's also the current world record holder for Portal 2, actually. And a lot of times, I think I have the VOD of us when we got the world record way back when, 2-3 years ago, and we're not even talking about the game. You'd expect a co-op student to be like, I got your 6. I'm watching. I'm setting up the glitch. Your pixel coordinate is -72. You expect all these stupid complex things. But we're just talking about the stupidest stuff ever. I think one of my favorite quotes ever, which is from that world record speedrun. My buddy Can't Even goes, "If IGN rated the cereal on a scale of 1 to 10, would that be a serial number?"
Oh.
And I thought about that for a long time, and it's just the random misfortunes that we have in a co-op speedrun that make it a lot of fun. I totally recommend if anyone wants to get into co-op speedrunning. I want to say other really good games. I've seen Borderlands speedruns are pretty cool. I know It Takes Two is a really popular game. I haven't seen the speedrun for it though. But Portal 2 is one of the best co-op speedruns. And what's super cool about Portal 2 co-op as a speedrun, while the normal game has a ton of complicated glitches, the co-op run is actually really simple to learn, mainly for the fact that in the normal game you can do so many broken things with 2 portals. In the co-op speedrun, we have 4. So we don't even need that many broken glitches. We just need some clever thinking to beat a lot of the levels really fast.
I'm just thinking, did you just both go into it and go, okay, we both know what we're doing, or was it a separation of you do A, I'll do B, and then we'll do that for the entire run?
A lot of it. I mean, obviously we had to go together and learn the speedrun, and we do some practice together. But when we actually do runs, it's actually interesting because we know what the other person is going to do from the start of the run. We have all the same routes, kind of. We know what each other are going to be doing at any point in time. The problem is when someone messes up. So if you ever watch Portal 2 co-op attempts, we can just be talking about anything, and then the second one person messes up, we have to communicate it and quickly back it up. Because the biggest problem is that if we deviate from the normal path, maybe I want to back up. I want to do a backup strat A, but he wants to do backup strat B, and that's when it becomes a complete mess. So the most interesting thing is that we'll be talking about stupid stuff, and the second one of us messes up, we'll snap and be like, I'm going to do this, or follow through my portal, or blah, 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 whatever we need to do to recover the run. And then once we're back through it, we'll snap back and talk about whatever stupid stuff we're talking about, because, it's all about having trust in your partner to do whatever the route you determined is.
Yeah, I'm just imagining it's the quickest. I guess if there's a difference between strats you want to do, it's got to be have to be the quickest argument ever. Just I want to do this, I want to do this. Just
yeah.
So the time is still going, so we need to decide.
That's a lot of times the biggest thing is this is the most generic thing I can describe. If in a certain level, one of us doesn't go through a portal for some reason, I'll be like, oh, I'll shoot the portals for you. And he'll be like, no, I'll shoot the portals. And I'm like, okay, you shoot the portals. It's like, wait, no, I thought you were going to shoot the portals. And it's like, what's happening? Yeah, it is super quick mini arguments.
At least we've still got a 5-second time save for next time if we get rid of this argument.
Yeah.
This was so random, I had to ask. Or to me, it seems random. You have the world record speedrun in Home Alone.
I know exactly. Yeah, Home Alone for the NES.
I'll just let you start because I don't even know where to start with.
Okay. Are you familiar with the movie Home Alone?
Yes.
For those who don't know, I'm not even explaining it. Just watch the movie. It's a classic. It is the Christmas season. But the whole gist of the game is that it's a game for the NES, where the whole point is that you have to run around the house while the wet bandits chase you. Just 2 bad guys, and all you have to do is put down traps to stop them. The reason why the game is funny from a speedrunning perspective is that all you need to do to beat the game is survive for 20 minutes. Actually 19 minutes and 58 seconds, but it's whatever. So to do a world record speedrun for the game, all you need to do is beat the game without pausing, and you get a world record time. If you go on the page, it is like a 130-way tied world record. And I remember the reason why I did the run in the first place was because I saw a video. I believe it was HDQ 2020. It was the last GDQ event before the pandemic, where there's a video of 13 speedrunners all in the practice room at GDQ. All of them are running Home Alone. They all started the game at the same time, so they all got the world record at the same time. And it was a very entertaining thing. The game's also cool because there's a glitch where you can get both of the bad guys stuck. So you just perform the glitch in the first 2 minutes, go AFK, go shower for 16 minutes, come back, stop your timer, and you have a world record. It's pretty funny. I often tell my friends, like, oh, you want a speedrun world record? I'll teach you Home Alone right now. Like, it's pretty funny. But yeah, it's probably just a gag thing because it's just beat the game without pausing. And there are even though everyone theoretically should be tied who beat the game, there are 3 people who just paused for a couple of seconds for no reason and submitted their runs anyways, which is funny. But there are 150 runs submitted, and it's a 145th way tie for first place. So it's a cool gag.
Speaking of GDQ and I guess events in general, I believe you participated in GDQ 19 for Half-Life and a separate event with GSA with Celeste. Do those sort of events, do you enjoy those?
So I could actually talk about this for a bit because I feel like I am one of the more... I've had a lot of opportunity as a speedrunner per se. I've gone to one in-person GDQ. In SGDQ 2019, I ran Half-Life. I went to a competitive speedrunning event in April of 2019 running Celeste. It was called PACE, ran by the Global Speedrun Association. That was a 4-day tournament GSA, which was Global Speedrun Association, an organization. They ran an online 12-man speedrunning league for Mario Odyssey, Celeste, and Mario 64. And I was in the Celeste league. And the top 4 players of the online league were invited out, all expenses paid, over to the venue in Maryland to compete in the top 4. That was super cool. I believe also earlier in 2019, there was a Twitch Rivals event for Celeste. It was a pretty cool format, actually. 4 hours, whoever got the fastest time. It was whatever the fastest time you could get in 4 hours, resetting all allowed, everything on the table. Similar to kind of break the record events, if you've ever seen those from ESA. I've done a couple of online ESA runs, and I've probably also done arguably what I think is the coolest event in all of speedrunning, which was the Barriere Speedrun Show, which was in February of 2020, where some French influencers... I don't even know if it was them. I think they were just part of the event, and it was a cable company's esports part of the company did a speedrun show for 20,000 euros cash prize, all in France, and we got flown out to France to compete, which was super sick. So I've had all these weird experiences that not a lot of people have got to have, and I enjoyed a lot. I think too that as much as speedrunning is a competitive thing, it's also a community thing where, if I have a world record time in a game and someone beats my time, you think naturally the response would be like, no, I want to be the best. I'm gonna beat you back. But realistically, the timer is the common enemy, seeing the game go down lower is all we really want to see. So obviously there's a part of me that wants to hold the world record for every game ever and be the best video gamer known to man. But I'm just going to get my feelings hurt one day, so why bother doing that? And just do my best to have fun and do what I can. And if someone beats me, then I'll try to beat them back. But that's awesome that they got to do that. So having these events, it's great to see people, who also do the speedrunning like you. That was the weirdest way. The people who do the speedrunning like you, I think, is the most out of touch thing I've ever said. That sounds like something your parents say to you. Oh, the people who do the speedrunning like you. But GDQ was super fun. I wanted to go to SGDQ 2020, but that got canceled and online formatted. But I really want to go to the next in-person GDQ event whenever it's safe. And I do also want to go to an ESA event one day, but I am in America, so flying out to Europe isn't the easiest thing to do. But also competing in those events is also such a cool environment. The Celeste tournament I did at PACE for Global Student Association was awesome. I ended up placing second. I lost to TGH, but it was awesome to meet everyone there. Chai Kitty and Fladervy were the other Celeste runners, and also talking to all of the other runners there was super cool. Just to put, the biggest story I always like telling from this is that the night before, or let me just show the overview of the event real quick. So it was the top 4, and it was a 4-day event. So it was a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. It was kind of a round robin style event where each day you would play one other player in a best of 3, and you'd score points based on that. So for example, if I faced player B and I beat player B 3-0, I'd get a point for every game win, and I'd get a point for winning the series. So going 3-0 would give me 4 points. It wasn't a best of 3. It was like you play 3 games. There's a point system, which is kind of weird, but it's just how the scheduling worked out. And then on Sunday, the players with the 2 most points went head-to-head in a best of 5. And me and TGH were the top 2 in points at the end of the event. And I remember the night before, since it's not ultra competitive, we're all just hanging out. The night before, like 8 of us went to get Five Guys down the road. And TGH looked at me and he's like, dude, you know we're basically having like a $1,000 Celeste money match tomorrow, right? And I'm like, well, when you put it that way, it sounds pretty cool. Yeah, it was like this real realization that like, wow. Cause it was like a $5,000 prize pool. And we did the math that like first to second place was $1,000 difference. It's like, dude, we're literally just having like a big money match tomorrow. It's pretty sick. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And the other example of that was the Barrier Speedrun show, which was an event that honestly I think not too many people in the speedrunning community took notes of, not as much as the mainline events like GDQ and ESA, because it was kind of ran by outsiders, and it also had some really weird games. For those unaware, the Barrier Speedrun show, it was a competition where this French company put up a 20,000 euro prize pool with 5,000 euros each going to one of 4 games at the event. One of them was Portal, one of them was Celeste, one of them was Minecraft, and the other one was Sekiro, which, to be fair, all super cool games, but I feel like most people think of like Nintendo when they think of speedrunning. But the event was also super weird in that it was all planned, at least to the public, it was planned within like 3 weeks of it happening. I remember coming home from school one day, from high school, at January 30th, and one of my French followers added me in this French video, and I'm like, okay, what is this video? It's a video of these French influencers announcing like this 20,000 euro speedrun competition for 2 games that I'm currently like world record contender in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess you can give me 20,000 euros right now. Like, oh, you know, I was like, damn. And the way the event worked is that they had online qualifiers. So it was from like February 1st to February 14th. You had to submit a recorded run to that website. And it had to be a run that you achieved in that time period. So it couldn't be an old PB. It had to be a fresh run. And whoever had the top 2 times at the end of the period, you'd be flown out or transported out over to the venue in France. And you'd play in one match, in one race, live in front of an audience. And the winner of that race got 4,000 euros. The loser got 1,000 euros. So I don't want to say it was like low pressure, but it was like, when I was there, I was like, man, I was just happy to be here. But I remember at the time I was running Celeste a lot more. I quickly derusted Portal within like 3 days. I got like 3 seconds off my PB and like 5 seconds off the world record. So I'm like, okay, I hope no one beats that. I'm going to try to get top 2 in Celeste now. And I played tirelessly for like a week, and I think I got 3rd place. Yeah, which, yes, I think it would have been actually kind of awkward if I played for both games. Would have been cool, but it would have been weird too. And you know, obviously I'm friends with the 2 Celeste runners that made it there, TGH and Marlon, so it was cool to see them as well. And that whole event was like a trip. I literally have a trophy in my room from winning that event. I did win the race, by the way, which was awesome. I faced Bwix, another Portal speedrunner, and even though we had a 3,000 euro money match, which was much more than the 1,000 I had a year prior, not that money is everything, but it is cool to talk about. And we were totally like, yeah, good luck, dude. Like, hope it all goes well. And even after the race, we were talking about it a ton. Like, he was sad about his mistakes, and I'm like, oh, I was kind of sad about my mistakes too. And it was, it's nothing but best wishes for both of us.
I mean, it is cool in that extent because it's increasing the reach of speedrunning outside of, I guess, a niche hobby. Like you mentioned, Break the Records a minute ago, which people may have heard of through Cheese, who was the Super Mario 64. I think that's how it started. I think trying to break the world record live, and I think that brought in a lot of attention. And like similar events like GDQ, as you mentioned, ESA. All this is just increasing the scope, increasing the reach, making more people aware of speedrunning. So I think like having those sort of cash prizes is just going to bring more attention to it, which I think is going to be good in the end, as it rising tide raise all boats and all that.
Yeah, no, it makes things appealing. I mean, personally, again, I the story I always like saying, especially to like my friends who I wouldn't say don't get it, but aren't as interested as much, and like even to, like my grandparents who like don't get it all. I'm like, someone flew me out to France. I played in front of 1,000 people, and they gave me a big check, and I literally have a trophy in my room. Like, that's pretty sick, all things considered. Like, even if it was just like, I'd do it again just for the experience, obviously. Like, it was such a sick thing. But I also, speedrunning, like, as a genre, I guess as a genre of entertainment, I guess, in terms of its reach as a whole, is super interesting. You talked about the events, but also one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of speedrunning is like reaction content in like a good way and in like a bad way, because it's crazy that like how much reaction content is out there for speedrunning, because obviously it's super cool to be like, I just beat this game casually, let's see how the speedrun does it, and then you watch the speedrun and then you're like, wow, is this the same game I played? Like, this is not the game I played, this is completely different, what are they even doing, how'd they get there, what is that? My favorite thing is I actually, admittedly, I have not played Skyrim, which is something I actually want to do really soon. But I just remember one of my friends was showing me the Skyrim speedrun, and it was like a minute and a half in. He's like, oh, you just got the Elder Scroll. And I'm like, the name of the game, Skyrim the Elder Scroll? He's like, yeah, he just got that a minute and a half in. He was like teleporting all over the place. I'm like, oh, that's cool. The shock value in speedrunning is super cool. Yeah, one of my favorite things is seeing people's reactions to speedrunning, but it's also a huge thing where it's like on YouTube, there are literally like not dedicated channels, but there are people who make speedrunning reaction content, and it's such a big thing. It's crazy.
YouTube's like a massive home for speedrunning content outside of just the pure speedrunning. Like I say, reaction videos, explanation videos, history videos of speedrunning. There's so much interesting stuff out there. Taz's are on another separate aspect, which are super cool to watch through as well, where it's like, okay, let's go to the peak of what could possibly be happening in this game.
Yeah, I love watching tool-assisted speedruns. They're so cool.
I recently watched one on Hollow Knight, actually, and they, like, I don't know how to, I can't even go into it because I'll go into too much about it, but
I think I've seen that Hollow Knight task. Stupid.
One example I will
crazy.
say, that I won't go too much into it, but there's exploding jellyfish in Hollow Knight, which is a Metroidvania platformer. And so what happens to these jellyfish? So once you strike the jellyfish, it sends an explosive chasing you. And this task, this tool-assisted speedrun, this bot that is playing through the game, it has this explosive following it for like 2 minutes. And this explosive is trying to track you down or track the character down. And it's just chilling, just letting it follow it around right until like he sends it into a boss. It's some mad stuff.
Yeah, isn't that the boss fight? Watching that too, if you know, I mean, I know you play a lot of Hollow Knight. Watching that is so crazy because it's almost like obviously it's a tool-assisted speedrun, so everything's been planned out, but it's almost like suspenseful because you know he's saving the explosive charge following him to use on the boss, but the whole time you're like, oh, is it gonna hit him? Like he's narrowly avoiding it. And especially in Hollow Knight 2, the way that charge works is that it kind of hovers. It's kind of like an orbital like gravitational pull almost. Like it rotates around the player really weirdly. So it's almost like hypnotizing. You're like memorizing to see it float around the player so
like
effortlessly. Yeah.
I'd say just one last thing on events. I believe you're running in GDQ January, is that right?
I am. I'm going to be running Portal Reloaded, which was the mod that was released earlier this year that features a third portal, which is pretty cool.
I just had it
I'm excited
noted
to do
down
that.
and I was just thinking, is that right?
Yeah, no, it is right. It's a small like 20-minute run, so it's not like I'm not like this is going to be a magnum opus, but it should be a lot of fun. And I don't know how to word this too well, but I think a lot of people in the speedrunning community really look forward to getting a run into GDQ. And don't get me wrong, it's super cool, but I don't want to say like been there, done that, but like, I'm not too like obsessed about like I gotta get this run perfectly. I gotta get all my commentators and get the run perfectly. I'm just gonna show off the run, and I think it'll be pretty cool. I think a lot of people will like it.
And just the last thing about just stuff we were talking about then to do with communities, not just being like competitive, but also like banding together, which is if you've seen, I guess, any community, I've seen a couple of communities do it, but when a game is approaching a new minute barrier, which means, like, for instance, if a speedrun has been done at 1 hour 30, something like that, and no one's gone into 1:29 before, the amount of work, hype, and, like, community there is around that between the runners, like sharing strats or optimizations, is super cool to watch from an outside perspective, and it must be even better obviously being a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're naturally drawn to those fancy numbers. It's an interesting thing. It's also like I don't know how to explain this philosophy, but I like to call it like the 90-10 rule, even though I don't think this is an actual thing. But it's the idea that it's like to get a craft 90% perfect, it'll take you to get a craft 90% of perfect, it'll take you 10% of the time, but that final 10% of that craft to perfection, it'll take you 90% of the time it takes in total to master something. It's like the law of diminishing returns, where it's like you can get really good at something really quickly, but that 10% more it takes to pass those 6 seconds that it takes you to beat the game in under an hour, that 6 seconds feels like a whole world of difference. And especially these, it's always nice to say you're the first to do something. And I'm the first to beat Home Alone in under 20 minutes. I phrased that incorrectly. I'm the first to beat Home Alone in under 20 minutes and 10 seconds. That doesn't quite have the same ring to it as I was the first to beat Home Alone in under 20 minutes. I always equivalate it to the idea of, I was the first to go 8,000 meters on Mount Everest, or, I was the first to climb Mount Everest. I don't actually know how tall Mount Everest is, but, 8,000 meters, if that's even taller than the mountain, who knows? But I'm just assuming 8,000 is really close to the peak. You can get almost there. Yeah, you can get almost there, but that doesn't really matter. But if you're the first person to go to the peak, like, that's a huge deal.
And to do with a couple of examples of vids, if you've done one yourself on the Portal 1 hour barrier, I should say. Is that correct first?
Can't even actually achieved it first.
No, sorry. Made a video about the progression to getting it sub hour. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I did. Yes.
So that's a really good watch. And then there's several others. Like Small Ant did one for Odyssey, and there's another one that's escaping me. But as we're talking about, those like speedrun focus documentation or historical videos are just really cool to watch.
Yeah, they are pretty cool.
Sort of, I guess, not on the reverse side, but another one of the videos, which is how I actually discovered you, was the Celeste the speedrunning cheating video, which I think has been discussed a few times. But what I was interested in your thoughts is why do speedrunners cheat, I guess? Or what's your opinion on why you think speedrunners cheat? It can be on that particular situation, but in general would also be good.
Yeah, I think, for one, this is a perspective too as a content creator. Cheating in speedrunning is like the most overblown thing on YouTube, where if you only watch speedrunning videos with over 1 million views, you're like, wow, speedrunning is rampant with cheating. Like, this is crazy. I think the truth is about cheating in speedrunning, it's never like someone comes out of nowhere and they get a massive time and it turns out they were cheating the whole time. Most of the times when people cheat, it was an already established runner who is probably good enough anyways to get the time that they cheated. Just, again, I like to put with that 90-10 rule. They got 90% of the way there, but they didn't want to put in that time to get that last 10%. Even though they knew they were capable of it, if they kept at it, they didn't want to spend that time to get that time they wanted. So they go ahead and cut some lines, slow down the game, use a script, whatever it takes to get that time, take out the editing program, cut a few videos together. And it's always more sad to see than it is something of like competitive integrity, because I feel like most of the times people will get discovered for it. It's just a matter of like 90% of cheated runs. It's something that the person who cheats it has the skill to do it normally. So it's always the thing that kind of sucks to see.
Carl Jokes, who does quite a few videos on speedrunning and several videos on cheating in speedrunning, had a good quote in regards to the dream situation. Was, I'm going to paraphrase this badly probably, but it's like people don't the speedrunners don't cheat to get a time, they get it to, or to get a fast time, they cheat to get the time faster. Oh, that's horrendously put together.
Yeah.
They don't cheat to get a fast time, they cheat to get a time faster. I don't know. So it's something like that.
Yeah. Close enough. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Speaking of actually YouTube creation, as mentioned a couple of times today, you've made several YouTube videos around speedrunning, in particular portal glitches, and a couple of other topics. What's your process of creating one of these videos from like conception to public? I guess I'll click on public.
Yeah, so YouTube has been an interesting thing for me because let me put it this way, I'm a speedrunner first. I never I feel like that's the way for most people. Actually, if you look at a lot of quote unquote popular speedrun streamers or speedrun YouTubers, and the best examples are like Summoning Salt. He was a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out world record holder before he got into all these world record progression videos, and that was the first thing he did. He made a world record progression for his Mike Tyson Punch-Out run that he was a part of his story, and people liked the video so much that he decided to do more on games he liked, and it kind of spun out of control from there. Carl Jobs, who you mentioned before, he was the same way. He was an incredible GoldenEye runner, and he made videos about all these cool GoldenEye tricks and not controversy, but kind of GoldenEye history, and it just went from there. And my channel is kind of the same way now, where it's interesting because the first video I made specifically for YouTube, it was called How Speedrunners Skip Cave Johnson's Lemon Rant. When I made the video, I've never really edited something before. I've never scripted something before. I kind of learned all of that to make that video. And the success that my YouTube channel has had now is crazy, because now that video has like 950,000 views, which is absurd. It was my first time like ever properly putting a project together. And I feel like it's interesting because I think sometimes would I still be making YouTube videos if they weren't this successful? And the answer is probably, just not as much as I do currently. Obviously, like, publicity is a motivating factor. But normally when I make videos, the biggest thing is having a topic at hand. Usually pick something I want to talk about in general, whether that be the progression of a certain level or a certain time, or a certain glitch or a certain discovery. Have a general overview of like, okay, this is what the video is generally going to be about. And then I go to script it. Scripting usually takes a bit of time, but it's usually like low effort stuff while I'm just kind of thinking of the best way to phrase stuff and present it. The biggest thing I worry about in my videos is that portal glitches are really complicated, and I think it's really easy to like not get the right idea. Even though like I try really hard to explain stuff, I feel like a lot of times I just come off as saying jargon, which, I mean, if people think I'm smart, then sure, but I try my best to make it approachable and interesting at the very least. And I basically go and do the voiceover, and then I edit. I think they're very narrative, kind of video essay-esque videos, but they're a lot of fun to put together. It's great to see things put into a final project, and I also love toying around with video game music, which is great for YouTube copyright system, but I love playing around with music and all that, and it makes for really cool videos, I think.
If you had one piece of advice for a new speedrunner, what advice would that be?
Enjoy it. I don't obviously it's the way I always like to put it is that if someone's a true speedrunner if they say they hate the game. If someone's like, "Oh, I love this game so much," you're like, "Yeah, you're not a real speedrunner," because when you speedrun the game so much, you look at all of the game's flaws and they get amplified because, whether it be a small little texture bug you get annoyed by, or whether it's a small like collision error that always stops you in your speedruns, you just end up hating everything about the game and you forget what's good about the game. So take your time, do your casual playthrough, learn everything a step at a time, because that's a process you're never going to get back. It's the idea of like, if you could replay your favorite game without any memory of it, would you do it? And most people would be like, yeah, absolutely. I loved playing my favorite game, whether that be like Portal or Hollow Knight or Fallout. Your authentic, casual first playthrough of a game is something that's always unmatched. And it's kind of the same for speedrunning. If you jump into a game right away, I think it's like a lot of people jump into Super Mario 64 learning how to speedrun it. Super Mario 64 is an awesome game. And I don't think, well, it obviously does get credit for what it's worth for like 15 years ago. But nowadays, like, people always complain about it from speedrunning. Super Mario 64 is such a good game, man. And I'm sure there are a ton of people who only booted up, ran 16-star on their emulator, but haven't actually played the game fully before, And that just, I don't know. I feel like it's just not what speedrunning is about, if you ask me. But I guess to each their own, as long as they're enjoying it.
If one game could be released tomorrow, either an announced, unannounced, or a sequel that you don't think will ever exist, what game would it be?
I guess either Half-Life 3 or Hollow Knight Silksong. Kind of on different ends of the things, but I think Half-Life 3 would be a really cool game. I also really like the Half-Life series, and while if you asked me a while ago, if you asked me like 2 years ago about Half-Life 3, I would have said the game probably wouldn't be that good. It wouldn't live up to any potential hype because the game's been literally memed to death. I think if you've seen the ending to Half-Life Alyx, they kind of preluded potential like story increase or story. There's a story implication at the end of the game, which I think was super. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I want more of this. Like, show me more. I want more video game. And obviously, as someone who's a Valve fan, obviously Half-Life 3. I think that those two words, technically 3, if you want to put a hyphen in Half-Life, Half-Life 3 is just a phrase that speaks for itself. Hollow Knight Silksong. I loved Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is actually one of those games where if I could replay it blind, I would. Because I think it was summer of 2020 I played Hollow Knight for the first time. And my first sitting, I played it for like 2 hours, and I got to like Green Path, and I'm like, this game's okay. And then the rest of the week, I dumped 80 hours into the game. I got completely lost in Hollow Nest, exploring every nook and cranny. It was the most fun I've ever had, and I can't wait to relive that for some extent whenever Hollow Knight Silksong comes out.
It'll be here. It'll be here at some point. He'll be here at some point. Oh, I'm just like getting like flashbacks over the last like decade of Half-Life 3 memes that I thought I'd forgotten about, but no, they're all like rising up. To do with the mental side of doing challenge runs, doing speed runs, if there is a time, could you tell me about a time when a particular run was taking its toll and how you got past it?
One of the biggest things for me that I'll always remember about in speedrunning in terms of burnout, I guess, there was one period, I believe, I think it was very late 2018, like November 2018, where I was very, very close to the Celeste speedrun world record. I was about like 4 or 5, somewhere between 4 and 10 seconds off the world record. And for maybe a week or two, it was all I could think about was those 6 seconds. And even then it was like I was ahead of the world record until like the last 3 minutes of the run. So every single movement mistake I made was haunting me for the next week, and I was just really fixated on trying to achieve that time until the point where I'm like, okay, I'm like really getting absurdly frustrated this for no reason. I'm burning myself out. Like, this isn't worth it. And took a massive step back from the game. For over a month, I got incredibly rusty as I just literally took a break from speedrunning as a whole, because I'm like, wow, I am not enjoying this. I guess I'm really driven, but it's not out of a sake of achievement. It's out of a sake of relief almost. I feel like if I were to achieve the world record at that point, I wouldn't be happy. I'd be relieved. I wouldn't be happy that I achieved something. I'd be relieved that my time paid off, because I feel like I spent so much time stressing about it.
That's definitely an interesting thought, because I've definitely experienced that with certain runs where it gets to a point where it is the fact that you want it to be over as opposed to you want to achieve it, which had it changed from one to the other a couple of times with different runs.
Yeah, I always like analyzing intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation in terms of like, do I want to do this because it would make me happy, or do I want to do it because I just have to do it. Like I have to do it to justify something. And if I find that, again, the way I worded it earlier, I think is really good. If achieving this will feel more like a relief than it will make me feel happy, then what's the point? You know? Rather tackle something that makes me feel more fulfilled almost.
Going along that, is there any particular runs you're doing at the moment that has that reasoning behind? That's something you want to do or want to achieve from?
Yeah, right now I'm sort of on and off. I'm slowly getting back into Portal glitchless, and I'm trying to get under 15 minutes. The thing I'm worried about is that under 15 minutes is a really good time. I'm currently like 15:13, 15:12, so still a bit of ways to go. But sub 15 is not too far from the world record of like 14:45, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of like, oh, the sunk cost fallacy. If I'm this close, well, might as well. But I think what's cool is that I'm so established. I've established myself in so many games that I can kind of go to whatever I want. I always say, like, if I had infinite time and no stress, I'd be running Portal one day, Half-Life the next, Celeste the day after that, maybe some Mirror's Edge next week. Because there are a lot of games I find really cool, but to speedrun games at the level I want, it takes a concentrated effort. So I like hopping between things when I get burned out, I suppose, but there's only so much I can do.
If I said most hyped or celebrated moment on stream, what moment would come to mind?
That's an interesting idea. I've been streaming for almost 4 or 5 years speedrunning, so it'd be a really tough one to answer. Especially because I've gone through, I think hype is all subjective, and like I guess the coolest thing ever was when I first got the Portal 2 world record, but it's also interesting too because I remember freaking out, and I had like maybe 40 viewers at the time, which was awesome. And nowadays I stream to audiences of 100 plus, so it's obviously I can feel like I have hyped moments, but I think I've done a lot of cool things in Celeste as well, and the epic soundtrack definitely helps to that. And I've also done a lot of cool things in person, in terms of in-person competition that definitely get me feel hyped up. But in terms of my stream, I think nothing can match the pure bliss that I got in like 2017 when I first got the Portal 2 world record.
And then my final question will be, what's in the future plans of Msushi?
Nothing is too certain. I mean, again, there are like so many things I want to do. I want to improve like all of my Portal personal bests. I want to get the world record back in Portal 2. I want to try my hand at Celeste again. I want to at least do 100% and get a competitive time in that again. I'd love to pick up Mirror's Edge or Half-Life again, or Half-Life 2. I do want to keep making YouTube videos. I actually have a couple cool video ideas planned for early to mid 2022, which should be fun. I want to continue streaming and generally playing video games. I think it's a lot of fun, and I don't know, as I go on, I kind of want to be like, as much as it's easy to say like, oh, I'm a Portal speedrunner or I'm a Celeste speedrunner, I just kind of want to be like a speedrunner. I like just playing what I find interesting, and I'm glad that I've gotten this far with it.
And if people want to check you out, where would they be looking?
Yeah, you can subscribe to my YouTube, Msushi. You can check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Msushi. And my Twitter is Msushi with an _ at the end.
Sweet.
That's about it.
Msushi, I really appreciate the time out with this. I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. I hope you've enjoyed it as well, man.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
I hope everyone else has enjoyed it as well listening. I hope everyone has amazing rest of their day, evening or morning, depending on time zone. And I will catch you in the next episode. If you enjoyed that and want to hear more conversations with amazing guests, be sure to head over to youtube.com/WayOfLoci, Loki spelled with C, or wayofloki.com/nohitpodcast.